Hey everyone, it's the time of year when I really should be getting to work on my kind of like, end of year lists, like my top 10 games that I played this year, so on and so forth. But my brain has landed on a different kind of top 10 video that it desperately wants me to make, and who am I but a slave to the whims of my own mind? So that's what we're doing today. We're talking about the top 10 games I would like either re-releases, remasters, or remakes of, and I'm going to talk about what I want for each game in detail and why I think it would be the perfect fit. Some of these games are going to be games that you might be expecting to hear about or, wouldn't be surprised to see. Other games are going to be games you've never heard of. I've tried to keep it a little bit sensible on the side of games you've never heard of. There are plenty more I would like to see re-released or remastered, but as for my absolute top 10, I'm happy to say that quite a lot more recognizable titles that people have actually played exist on this list, but there are going to be a few hear me outs. But yeah, we live in an age where games are being brought back all the time, like games are getting remasters that are like those obscure titles which I loved, which a lot of people might have never heard of, such as Ballance. Ballance got a re-release on Steam, and it's a very minimal re-release, but it, you can buy it on Steam and it runs on modern platforms, and I think it might have Steam achievements too, and that's all I ever really wanted for that game. So for, games like that, I think I'm pretty well justified in including some of the more obscure titles. So without further ado, number 10, Bubsy 3D. I'm joking. Please don't leave. I'm joking. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Wait a goddamn minute. Wait, hang on. Wait. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, they did re-release Bubsy. I knew this, and I scoured it from my memory. Look, okay, if they can re-release Bubsy 3D, they can re-release any game I'm about to talk about, okay? So just keep that in mind, I suppose. Number 10, Zoo Tycoon and Zoo Tycoon 2. Did anyone ever play the Zoo Tycoon games? They were peak. Every now and again, I'll go on GOG.com and I'll look up Zoo Tycoon to see if they've re-released it as like a good old game, but sadly, alas, it is not to be. But for those of you who don't know, Zoo Tycoon is a game in which you manage a zoo. You build exhibits, you adopt animals, and you can watch them grow. You need to feed them right, you need to make sure they've got the right conditions and everything. But you can watch them grow and you can watch them, I was going to say mate, but that sounds weird. But you can see them have kids, and then you can see those kids grow up and so on and so forth, and you can name them. And honestly, this was the big appeal to me and my sister when we were kids. In fact, it was my sister who played this game more than me, by quite a substantial amount, I might add. But yeah, I've had the desire to go back and play these games more than once. And Zoo Tycoon 2, is a little bit more modern. Instead of like this isometric view, it was still isometric, but it had more modern graphics, and you could also like walk around as a guest or as a zookeeper, I suppose. You could go and like feed your animals manually and stuff like that. Nowadays we have Planet Zoo, which I've played a little bit of and I hear positive things about, but you gotta recapture the magic of Zoo Tycoon, the original game. And for this one, I wouldn't be completely averse to a little bit of a graphical zhuzh up in the same manner that maybe like Diablo 2 or Age of Empires, that's the game I'm thinking of. Those games have had just a little bit of a graphical enhancement purely because at higher resolutions those zoo animals will look very pixelated. But I would, if they're going to do that, I would still require them to have an ability where you press a button and you can see the original graphics, please. Zoo Tycoon is one of those games where the magic is very much within the presentation of the game, and I don't think you can mess with that too much. So I'm looking at like a remaster, but in the sense that, old music gets remastered. I want it to be the same game. I want it to be the same experience, but I would like it to be available on modern storefronts and hardware. Zoo Tycoon is currently owned by Microsoft Studios, so we'll have to see if they ever get around to remembering that they own it. Also, as an aside, I have opinions about certain publishers such as Microsoft and EA and stuff. That's going to come up later, spoiler alert. For the purposes of this video, we're just going to ignore that and pretend like I'm happy to pick up games from any publisher, because this is This is like a dream list, right? This is a wish list. This is a most desired games list. Not like a, oh, I'm not gonna talk about that one because it would have to be published by these people who I don't like. But yes, Microsoft Studios did release a Zoo Tycoon game for, I think it was the Xbox One. Like, it was like a launch title, and I have heard terrible things. If that's the only Zoo Tycoon game you've played, that is not what I'm talking about, don't worry. In case you're like, huh, really? That game? What the heck? Number 9. Fur Fighters Vigo's Revenge, or just Fur Fighters. This one is a bit of a self-indulgent one. This is one of those games that not many people will have heard of, but if you watched my recent video on my top 10 PlayStation 2 games of all time, you will have heard me talk about this game. So not to recap too heavily, but Fur Fighters is kind of a third-person shooter slash platformer game where you control these little animals running around these levels looking for their kids, and it's interesting because each different character has different abilities and very different orbs placed throughout the level, teleportation orbs through which you can switch characters. So it's kind of like a, oh, I see that I need this character over here to go over here. It's a fantastic game, honestly, and I'm really surprised that it didn't make more of a splash, but it was originally a Dreamcast game, so maybe that's why. But yeah, I would personally like them to re-release Vigo's Revenge because it's the more up-to-date modern version of the game. It has cel-shaded graphics instead of what was there before. I don't know if it had any more content or not, though, but yeah, I would, you know, maybe like, I don't know, include a button to choose between the two graphic styles. But for Fur Fighters, I might ask for some modernized control scheme. You can keep the original. I think it's important to keep the original control scheme because it's the one people are used to if they play it like fairly often. But for those of you who have never played the game, it's triangle to run forwards and X to run backwards and then square and circle to strafe. You know, it's an interesting choice. I think this game could be improved with a more modern control scheme where you use the analog sticks to run around and then, you know, X to jump and R2 to shoot and all that good stuff. It's not like the worst thing to have to adapt to if you want to go back and play the original game, but it's definitely an adjustment. Oh, I've just remembered something. Okay, we're going to do an honorable mentions at the end of this list because I just had to knock something off this list to make way for something else and it kind of breaks my heart. But it's not this next entry. Number 8. Give us some kind of Need for Speed collection. Earlier this year, I went through and I did a Weekly Waypoint series, or sub-series within the Weekly Waypoint, where I went and played a bunch of the oldest, like, PS1 Need for Speed games. And I had a really good time. They're all, like, different and unique, especially in terms of how they handle and stuff. And I really want them to be brought back in some kind of collection. But obviously when I'm talking about a Need for Speed collection, I'm also mostly thinking about the PS2 games such as Need for Speed Underground 1 and 2. They are some of the most requested remasters ever and most wanted. And then if you really want, you can throw in extras like Carbon and you know, like Shift maybe, and Undercover, just like the PS2 era. Maybe you could have like a PS1 collection and a PS2 collection. You might be thinking, Christian, collection? Isn't that cheating a little bit? This is meant to be your top 10 desired games, and now you're talking about entire series. Well, it's my list and I can do what I want. Now, of course, there are two main hurdles when it comes to remastering old racing games. The first is the car licensing, and the second is the music licensing. This is the main reason which these have not happened. I think EA know that they would print money if they were able to release Need for Speed Underground 2 Remastered, but they also know that they might not print money if they were unable to get the soundtrack the way it was back in the day, or the car list the way it was back in the day. Not when people have the alternatives of emulating the games, or modding the PC original games, or just playing the original games. But I think if they were able to get those kinks worked out, I would be very interested in seeing a hopefully expansive Need for Speed Remastered collection. I would want the graphics zhuzhed up a little bit, but I would want them to remain faithful to the original graphics. Again, I'm going to say this for every single game where I talk about the graphics changing, but include a button to swap between the original and the remaster. That's surprisingly uncommon in remasters, but I think it's always appreciated. But yeah, this is probably going to be one of the least likely entries, even next to something like Fur Fighters, just because I think there are too many hurdles to jump for this re-release. They could always go the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 route and like change like whatever parts of the soundtrack that they couldn't fix. But I don't know. I mean, I know the soundtrack is iconic to the Tony Hawk's games, but like, Can you imagine Need for Speed Underground without Riders on the Storm? I don't know, man. I don't think I could. I think this is why we've seen EA release Need for Speed games in recent years, which are definitely trying to draw inspiration from Need for Speed Underground, like Heat. And it's like, look guys, we're doing the underground racing scene again. We're not going to call it Underground though, okay? Don't ask. But the problem with releasing a modern racing game like that is you're going to want it to play like a modern racing game with more realistic physics, even as an arcade racing game. And I've gone back and I've replayed Need for Speed Underground in recent years, and it would have to be the same handling and stuff as well, just so we're clear. I do not want a Need for Speed Underground remake with modern handling and stuff. No, I want a remaster with the old goofy-ass handling. I think that would fundamentally change the game if you messed with it, so don't mess with it. Hypothetical Need for Speed Underground remaster developers who don't exist. Number 7. Gauntlet Dark Legacy. I think it would be fair to call Gauntlet Dark Legacy a cult classic, if you'll excuse the term. It's a dungeon crawling game, but it's kind of like a party co-op dungeon crawling game. It's like spooky and gothic, but it also does not take itself seriously, and there are comedic elements to it. It's structured a little bit like a Crash Bandicoot game, in which you've got like the hub world and you've got different levels that you go and teleport to and complete, and you got to collect crystals, except you're collecting multiple crystals a level instead of just the one. Your crystals in this game are your Wumpa fruit in that game. But yeah, this is an old PS2 RPG, which I've never actually gone all that far through, but I have an immense amount of fondness for and am desperate to replay in some kind of modern re-released format. I wouldn't necessarily mind if they gave this one the medieval treatment, you know, the remake that they did on PS4 for that game. But again, that's more of a graphical remake. But yeah, it's like, where do you draw the line between remaster and remake, obviously? I think it's in the code, like, are you building it from the ground up, or are you taking the original game and keeping it underneath? That being said, I don't know if they did that for medieval. Maybe that is more of a remaster and I've just always thought of it as a remake. I don't know. I'm not here to debate that today, but yeah, I just want to play that game again, man, and I want it to be out there in the modern zeitgeist of like, oh wow, look at this. You know how the Legacy of Kain's Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remastered came out, and it's like, you know, you have people who love that game who are telling people who have never heard of it, like, this game's really great and I can't believe it got a remaster. I feel like this could be like that level of remaster, right? Go look up a Gauntlet Dark Legacy video and you will find people in the comments begging for a re-release or a remaster of some kind. It's beloved, and I love it very much, and I think it would be great. I don't know who owns it though. I think probably someone who doesn't care enough to remake it. Number 6. Unreal Tournament Collection. A few years ago, Epic pulled the Unreal Tournament games from Steam, and I think maybe from their own store as well. Let me go check. Yeah, no, that's wild. It's not even on the Epic Game Store. Epic have completely, like, burned their bridges with Unreal Tournament fans, and it's really sad to see. But yeah, sorry, for those of you who don't know, Unreal Tournament is it's one of the most famous and beloved arena shooters in the genre. It's mostly, like, between Unreal Tournament and Quake, right? And the three kind of main games we can all agree in the franchise are Unreal Tournament 2004, and Unreal Tournament 3, which is a little bit less popular, but I still love it all the same. And I'm lucky enough to have those games in my Steam library. Despite them having been delisted, I can download them and play them at any time. But I want them back, damn it. Hang on, is it on GOG? It is not on GOG. So, more than any previous game we've talked about so far, I think Unreal Tournament as a series deserves to be re-released because it's literally not purchasable in any form at this point. And yeah, that makes it abandonware and you can do with that what you will. But also, you know, that means jumping through unofficial hoops to get the game up and running and making sure you get it safely and stuff like that. Hell, even when I download these games from my Steam library, I have to spend a while like configuring them, making sure they actually run at native resolution and stuff like that. There is a lot of technical fiddling just to get the games up and running again. And I know arena shooters are not what they were. They are not a popular genre anymore, but I guarantee you, if you were to spend some time remastering these games so that you could just buy them and download them and they would just work with modern computers and release more official servers, or at least the ability to host your own servers in an official server list, I guarantee you would make money and you would have a much larger player base than currently exists for Unreal Tournament. This is another one of those re-releases where it would be sacrilege to fiddle with the gameplay. Do not do that. And I would argue that you don't even need to fiddle with the appearance of the games. I think they all have their own distinct look and aesthetic, and I don't, you know, Unreal Tournament 2004 especially, we just did that on a weekly waypoint recently. It still looks good. Like, the character models maybe not so much, but the environment, yeah, I like how that looks. It's aged well. But I think what you could also do is is maybe re-release the editing tools, maybe make Steam Workshop integration. I know they'll never do that because Epic hates Steam. So maybe some sort of proprietary like map browser feature that, oh my god, I've just thought about now, that would be incredible. You know what Epic are doing in Fortnite nowadays? There's no reason they can't do that for Unreal Tournament. I mean, okay, maybe technically in the background with code and all that shit there is. I don't know how that shit works, but I would love to see it. I know they were working on a new Unreal Tournament before Fortnite took off and they poached all those developers and then shut the game down and pretended like it never happened and never mentioned it again. But you don't have to make a new Unreal Tournament. I think it would almost be folly to try to at this point. All you need to do is re-release the old games, and I think this is actually kind of likely. I think this could happen. Maybe even release some new maps with it, I don't know. But definitely release some sort of community map feature of like, you know, within the game maybe you can go and find a list of popular upvoted community maps and stuff like that. It would be the perfect re-release for the series. And maybe even allow full-on modding for people to create their own weapons and stuff and skins and all that good stuff. Make us 30-plus-year-olds happy, damn you, Epic. I would say you owe it to us after snatching away the revival of Unreal Tournament because you suddenly started printing money on a different project. Glares at Tim Sweeney. Sorry, can you tell we're getting to the portion of the list where I have really strong opinions and emotions about the games that I want to see again? Number 5. Animal Crossing Collection. Hear me out. This is a bit of a weird one, I know, because you know, you could argue that Animal Crossing games are evolutionary in that each title adds more things, and especially up to like New Leaf anyway, like it's kind of the same game but they've added more stuff to it, especially between Wild World and City Folk. But no, I disagree. I think, especially New Horizons, Animal Crossing New Horizons is a fantastic game. I've sunk so many hours into it. I've had some delightful memories made in that game, but it's not the same. And you can find videos online of people talking about this as well, but it's just a fundamentally different kind of a life sim game, and the vibes, like, the Animal Crossing vibes are semi-there, but also you have lost something in replacing it with, like, a tropical island theme and stuff like that. It's not quite the weird, cozy, quirky game that it was before. Like, the villagers aren't mean to you anymore, and that sounds like a really weird thing to request, but that was definitely an element of the game in the past which made them feel more real. And yeah, I think every single Animal Crossing title, bar maybe Wild World and City Folk, has its own identity and its own aesthetic, and I don't see any reason why we can't re-release those games in some sort of collection. Or maybe this might be an argument for not doing it as a collection, because, you know, it's a life sim game and you're not going to play them all side by side, so maybe release like one a year or maybe every 2 years, because then you could kind of reinvigorate that community idea of like, oh look, I'm playing Animal Crossing and so's this person. And you know what would be really nice? If they re-released Animal Crossing GameCube but added online capabilities to it, so you could go on a train and visit your friends over Wi-Fi. Same with Wild World, I suppose. I don't know what they would do with Wild World and City Folk. I wouldn't mind if they omitted Wild World and just released City Folk, because City Folk is very much an expansion on the ideals of Wild World. It's almost the same game but with more stuff added to it. But New Leaf is a different game. New Leaf follows the same formula and looks familiar, but it definitely is its own game. I think the one I have the most fondness and memory for is City Folk. Re-release City Folk and make it so that when you run over grass it doesn't disappear. I don't care. You can make that one tweak to the game and I'll be happy. Thank you very much. That would make it a perfect game. But yeah, I think one of the most positive reasons to re-release old Animal Crossing games would be to allow online functionality between games that never had it or games which no longer have it. And unfortunately I think Nintendo do see this series as one where the latest entry replaces the previous one, whereas I think so many people would be happy to revisit these older titles. It would make my heart happy. Alright, let's just do it. Number 4. The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. Hashtag some changes. Okay, so we've got Arena and Daggerfall released and playable on modern systems and stuff. We've got Oblivion Remastered, which is more of a remake, which is a complete graphical overhaul to the game and makes it look entirely new, but crucially maintains the bones beneath it. And we've got Skyrim released on everything from the PS3 to your nan's toaster. Morrowind, I think, is sorely in need of some love. And here's why I say some changes. I'm approaching this as someone who has tried to play Morrowind, the original game, and I just can't. I started with Skyrim, and going back to Oblivion was an experience in adjusting my expectations and learning game systems that got trimmed out of Skyrim. And I love Oblivion now, but it definitely took some time to get used to it. But Morrowind is an even further step back. And here's the thing, I know, Morrowind fans right now are clawing at their screens. Christian, no, don't you dare. Don't you dare ask them to what's the word, not gentrify, homogenize Morrowind. We're all sick to death of the Bethesda formula, and Morrowind would actually be a more unique Bethesda RPG to release. I know, I hear you, don't worry about it, listen to me. The first and main thing I'm asking for is a classic mode. You need, fundamentally, to re-release the game as the people who love Morrowind remember it. That is the most important thing. Do not re-release this game at all if you are not going to release it in a way in which older Morrowind fans can appreciate the game as it was. But give me options. Give me the options for a minimap or a compass and quest objectives. Those are the main things, right? I just need a compass at the top of my screen and quest markers. And there will be purists who argue that that will take away from the experience. Fine, whatever. You have your options if I'm getting my way with this remaster. I just need to be able to play your game. Because I've played the Elder Scrolls Online version of Morrowind and I loved it. It's one of the most unique areas in the game. It has some of the best quests, some of the best storylines, and some of the best visuals. This is another one I wouldn't mind them to do the Oblivion remastered style graphics on. Although, again, I would like that toggle, and that toggle is not present in Oblivion Remastered, and I would like them to add the toggle. But yeah, you can keep your weird melee combat style, you can keep all of the weirdness with making your own spells and making it so that you can jump super high and then die of full damage. I want you to keep all of that. That stuff is essential to keeping Morrowind as Morrowind, and I want to explore that in my own way. Keep the extremely dialogue-heavy quest windows, you know, keep like the slightly more complicated stat attribute system. Just keep it all. Just give me quest objective markers, because oh, it's so difficult to enjoy Morrowind in 2025. I'm sorry, but if you're not used to it, it just is. And I want to play your game, and maybe you're going to tell me that I'm not going to be playing your game if I'm playing it with quest markers, but hey, stop it. Stop gatekeeping. I have a bad attention span. I do think at one point we'll probably get a Morrowind remastered, but I don't know what direction they're going to go with it, and I would like them to do it my way because, of course, I know what's best for everyone all the time. Just hire me, Bethesda, obviously. But yeah, despite loving Oblivion, one of the main criticisms I heard about it was Morrowind needed this more, and I get it, and I agree, and I want it. Okay, now we're getting into the top 3. Now it's getting serious, fam. Okay, let's be real, it's been serious since Unreal Tournament, but come on, what do I want the most? What do I want to see re-released the most in my heart? Number 3, I really, in my bones, want a Ratchet and Clank collection on PS5 and PC, please, because I don't own a PS5. Please bring the games to PC. That is the main driving force here. Because no, they've done it already, right? The Ratchet & Clank HD trilogy exists. It's a thing. It's a PS3 game, though. And let's be real, we've been remaking and re-releasing PS3 games for years. Hell, we've started doing that with PS4 games. And you know what's available on both PS3 and PS4 and PS5? Jak and Daxter, Jak 2 and Jak 3. You know what's not available? The Ratchet & Clank games. For anyone not familiar with me, Ratchet & Clank 2 is potentially my favourite single-player game of all time, rivaling maybe Skyrim. Actually, rivaling a few things. I haven't thought about that in a while. That's a whole different video. But yes, I think there's a huge opportunity to bring the old Ratchet & Clank games forward, and I know it's also a huge challenge because of the way in which those games were made. If anyone has ever tried to emulate Ratchet & Clank in the past, you will know that it is one of the more it's one of those games. The Ratchet & Clank HD collection for PS3 is unfortunately a bit of a buggy mess. You have issues like Ratchet's helmet in cutscenes being too big for his head. I once had a bug where Ratchet ceased to exist and I was just piloting a suit of armor which was impervious to all damage. I have photo evidence of that. The load screens have the wrong sound effects at the wrong times as the ship goes careening through space, which is a minor bug, but it does really bother me. So, if possible, I would like them to go back to the PS2 releases again and do it properly. As difficult as I know that would be, I would remarkably appreciate it. That's not how you use the word remarkably, brain. Why did we do that? But you know what else I want? I want to play Ratchet & Clank Tools of Destruction, Quest for Booty, and A Crack in Time, and Into the Nexus, please. I would like those also re-released on modern hardware. Picture it. the Ratchet and Clank 7 game collection. And you don't need to do the PS4 one because it's the PS4 one. I mean, again, they have been remastering PS4 games. You could always bring it forward to the PS5 and the PC if you wanted to. I wouldn't hold you against it. I'm not as against the Ratchet and Clank 2016 remake as some people are. It's a good game, damn you. But those initial 7 games I want to see the most. And you can leave out All For One and Q4, so you don't have to worry about that. I do think there's a non-zero chance that at least the PS2 games will reappear at some point in the future, because I think there is a huge demand for them. Ratchet and Clank was practically the poster child of the PS2 generation next to maybe Kratos from God of War, and it's a little wild that we have no real way of playing them without resorting to old hardware. But also Insomniac are super busy with all the Marvel stuff, and I would rather see a new Ratchet and Clank game from them than... Oh, actually, would I? Oh, would I? Because we got Rift Apart, and I never actually finished that game, and I did really like it, and it is a masterpiece from what I've seen and heard and played. But would I rather them continue making Ratchet and Clank games, or would I rather them take a minute to stop and bring back the old games? I think I would rather them take a minute to go back and remaster the old games and bring them onto new hardware. It's an important part of their history, right? Then again, I think more realistically, they should partner with a third-party, company, development studio to go and do that. Because for those of you who don't know, there are development studios out there which actually specialize in port jobs and remasters and bringing old games to new hardware and stuff, and you should be thanking those developers, because without them we wouldn't be able to play these older games on newer hardware. And this is one of the reasons why I want a best remaster slash port slash re-release category in the Game Awards, because those people do not get recognized, and yet they are some of the most played games of the year usually. Okay, but anyway, yes, Ratchet and Clank, please let me play those games again on modern hardware, I beg you. Next up, number 2 is Dragon Quest 4, 5, 6, and 9, which is absolutely cheating. And I would argue it's also maybe the most likely request I've made so far on this list. But for those of you who don't know, they started remaking the Dragon Quest series in the HD 2D style. We've had Dragon Quest 3, and then more recently we've had Dragon Quest 1 and 2. And then, fairly recently, surprising everyone, they announced Dragon Quest 7 Reimagined, which I'm so excited about, because I love Dragon Quest 7. I've played about half of that game on my 3DS, and listen, you might be like, half of the game? It's a lot of game. And it's also kind of, along with Dragon Quest 2, funnily enough, one of the least favourite entries in the series. So to see it getting this big remake treatment, especially when it already got one on 3DS, is kind of astonishing. But I think the whole reason they're doing the reimagined thing is because they want it to be in line with the other Dragon Quest games in the series in terms of how many people like it and are able to play it without having to sink 100 hours of their life into it. And that's why they're kind of streamlining it and trying to make it a shorter game, a shorter, more punchy experience, I think they've said. Well, not in those words, but you know what I mean. Anyway, long story short, we are getting Dragon Quest games on modern hardware, usually in remake format. Now, my prediction is they will do 4, 5, and 6 in HD 2D style, and they will do 8 and 9 in reimagined style, or, completely different styles. But I do think their plan is to release new versions of these games on modern hardware for new audiences, because Dragon Quest has become a lot more popular in the West than it was last time they released these games. However, I wouldn't be averse to just a DS collection, which is why I say 4, 5, 6, and 9. You might be like, well, what have you got against 8? I mean, I'm kind of currently playing 8 on 3DS, so I'm not all that desperate for 8. But yes, they should do 8 as well. Honestly, despite my prediction about the reimagined stuff, I would like to see 8 given the 11 treatment. Just make it look like 11, and I think you'll make a lot of people very happy. But anyway, 4, 5, and 6, and 9 are... they're stuck on DS, but they're also really good versions of those games. And actually, they're not just stuck on DS, they're also on mobile. They've been ported to mobile, so they've already done the work of decoupling it from the dual screen experience. And it would definitely be, a kind of a shame to see these games not get the HD 2D treatment or some other kind of treatment. But also, I can't help but look at the HD 2D games, as gorgeous as they are, and go, but those are kind of semi-new games. I would also like to be able to play the quote-unquote originals, even though the DS versions of these games are not the originals. But yeah, those Dragon Quest games, basically, bring them forwards, please. Would like to play them. Promise I'll finish one someday, thanks. Which leaves us with my most requested, most desired remaster slash remake slash re-release collection of games, which is probably not going to be a huge surprise or shock. Number 1. I would like to see a Pokemon collection. Game Freak do it. Why are you so weird about it? The only time Game Freak have ever re-released old Pokemon titles was the original Game Boy games, Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, Silver, Crystal on 3DS, and that they did with a whole lot of fanfare because they never really do that. Now, of course, that's overlooking the remakes such as Fire Red, Leaf Green, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, and Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. Boy, I was not prepared to recite those. But Pokemon remakes are very much new entries, or in the most recent example, worse entries, because what they usually do is they take the latest gimmick and inject it into the old game, and they also add they front load the game with a bunch of new Pokemon, or I guess the end game with a bunch of new Pokemon from later generations. For instance, Pokemon Soul Silver is not a Generation 2 game like Silver was, it is a Generation 4 game because that is the generation in which it got remade, which means it includes Generation 3 and 4 Pokemon, and it has move sets and types and balancing from all of that. So to be clear, when I ask for a Pokemon collection, I am specifically asking for re-releases of the original games on modern hardware, with maybe Pokemon Home integration and online trading capabilities, but beyond that, just do not touch it. Keep it untouched. Keep it the way it was. And I'm going to be honest, I would not be that excited about Gen 1 and Gen 2, because first of all, we've already had that on 3DS, but second of all, I never played those games back in the day. I would be so excited to be able to play the Game Boy Advance games and the DS games, and, if we're feeling really spicy, the 3DS games as well. Now, this is Nintendo, and this is the Pokemon Company, and this is Game Freak, so this, it's not gonna come out as one big collection for £60. It'll be drip-fed, or it'll appear on NSO, or it'll be, like, subpar, but I'm a dreamer, damn it.
Are you an idiot?
No, sir, I'm a dreamer.
So I want them to release it in 3 waves. Wave 1, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance collection. Maybe give it a snazzier title than that. Wave 2, DS collection. Wave 3, 3DS collection, huh? See, it works, huh? And then thanks to the backwards compatibility capabilities of the Switch 2, that was a difficult thing to say out loud, you suddenly have access to every Pokemon game. And include the remakes, please. Include Fire Red and Leaf Green. Include Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Include Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. As I've already mentioned, they are their own games, they are their own experiences. And I know I said don't mess with the gameplay, but I've just remembered this. If you want bonus points, okay, you could disable home functionality for these save files, I don't mind, but include randomizer and Nuzlocke game modes. For once in your goddamn life, Nintendo / Game Freak / the Pokemon Company / whoever's in charge of this shit, take note of what your community wants and the way your community plays, and incorporate that into a product which you sell them. They will love you for it, I promise you. But yeah, this is pretty much the dream that every Pokemon fan has had / has. But Pokemon's 30th anniversary is coming up soon, so that's probably about the right time to look back on the franchise and get nostalgic and re-release that nostalgia for fans to buy and gobble up, right? What do you mean there was no sign of it on the leaks about all the future Pokemon games they're releasing? Maybe they outsourced it, leave me alone. Now, while I have you all here, it wouldn't be a top 10 list without me violating the rules of a top 10 list in order to include some honourable mentions. I won't talk about these in too great a detail, but I would like to just throw them out there. Firstly, while it's incredibly unlikely, I would love a modern way to play RC Revenge or RC Revenge Pro. They are two RC racing games and some of my favourites ever made. They're the spiritual successor to Revolt, which did get a re-release on modern systems, or at least on Steam, so why can't we do RC Revenge as well, I also would really like a modern way to play specifically Rayman Revolution, which is the PS2 version of Rayman 2, but I think it'd be really fun to release a Rayman 2 collection, because I remember watching a video that I think John Cartwright did where he talked about how there's like 4 different versions of that game, so you could release an entire collection of just that game and let people choose their version. Sure, that would be easy to make. Go on, just bash it out, get it done, Ubisoft. Obviously, probably a Rayman collection with 1, 2, and 3 would be better. Road Trip Adventure was the one which I had to knock off this list to make room for Unreal Tournament. I mean, a lot of these games I'm mentioning you can hear me talk more at length about in the top 10 PS2 games video, but yes, this was a car PG where you would both race and drive around an overworld and talk to people, then do quests for them and stuff, and I would love to play that. Koro QHD collection, it's never gonna happen, but come on. Let me think, what else do I search for on Steam once every few years just to see? Okay, I will end this with the most unlikely one ever. There was an old gaming website called Instant Action, and it had Marble Blast. It had like a multiplayer only version of Marble Blast, and it had a game called Think Tanks where you would like, you know, drive around tanks and shoot at each other from across the map. It had a bunch of games, and I've not seen them pop up anywhere else. So Instant Action's catalogue of games, there were like 6 or 7 of them. It was different back in the day. Like, most game websites had like hundreds and thousands of like flash games on there, but these were like specifically tailored for this one website, and I had a lot of fun playing games on Instant Action back in the day. And you know what, while we're talking about web games, bring back Platform Racing 1 and 2, please. That would be wonderful as well. Maybe they have, I haven't checked in a while. I know some old flash games get collected in, like, for instance, Armor Games have some like collections on Steam and stuff like that, so it's worth looking them up. But yeah, some of those old types of games. Alright, that's gonna be it for the honourable mentions, I think. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go and wash this clown makeup that's spontaneously formed on my face off of my face. So I'm just gonna leave you with a please let me know down below what your most desired remake / remaster is, and in what form you would like to see it. And leave a like if you liked the video. It helps my little channel grow, and I will see you in whatever I make next.